These 7 hidden AliExpress machines automate handmade products for massive profit margins. I burned through $3,200 importing obscure industrial gear to test in a real workshop. If you pick the wrong one, you aren't building a business, you're just paying $500 for a heavy doorstop. 5 of these machines were absolute nightmares to operate, but one turned free waste into sellable inventory immediately, and another cut labor costs from $2 to 4 cents per unit. The best performer wasn't the most expensive one. But first, you need to understand what actually separates winners from expensive paperweights. I judged every machine against 3 non-negotiable profit killers. First, the home outlet test. Many AliExpress imports arrive wired for industrial 220-volt grids. If it required calling an electrician, it failed immediately. I once spent $450 rewiring a shop for a $200 press. That is bad math. You need plug-and-play capability to start earning on day 1. Second, I measured the babysitter ratio. If I have to stand there feeding it materials, I'm not a business owner. I'm just an operator earning minimum wage. The machine must run autonomously for at least 20 minutes per cycle. That frees you to pack orders or market the product. Third, the Home Depot rule. Can I buy the raw materials locally right now? One machine required specialized pellets that took 34 days to ship. That kills cash flow dead. If I couldn't restock at a local store for under $50, the machine was disqualified. Finally, the 5 times margin requirement. The output had to sell for 5 times the input cost on a test listing. Anything less isn't worth the headache of shipping. So here's what happened when I put 5 machines through these tests, starting with the worst. Number 5 was a desktop filament extruder. I paid $385 hoping to turn plastic bottles into 3D printing wire. The promise was infinite free material. The reality was a tolerance nightmare. The machine couldn't hold a steady diameter. It produced lumpy filament that looked like cooked spaghetti. I foolishly fed this into my $900 Prusa printer. It clogged the hot end instantly. The extruder motor burned out trying to push it. So I didn't just lose the $385 on the machine, I caused $140 in damage to my existing gear. That is a negative ROI of 136%. It failed the home outlet test because it actually drew so much power the plug melted slightly at the terminal. Lesson learned, never trust precision manufacturing to a machine made of stamped sheet metal. Most people quit here. They assume the whole concept of micromanufacturing is a scam. It isn't, but you have to stop buying toys and start buying tools. An automatic boba pearl maker for $215. Bubble tea shops run on 80% margins. I wanted a slice of that action selling dried pearls on Etsy. At this point, my ledger showed a $525 loss. The machine looked robust in the video, but it failed the babysitter ratio miserably. The dough consistency had to be scientific. Too wet? It turned into a sticky paste that gummed the gears. Too dry? The motor stalled and shrieked. I spent 6 hours trying to get one continuous run. I produced maybe 3 bags of sellable pearls. That's a labor cost of roughly $60 per bag. You cannot scale a business if the machine requires an operator to hover over it with a chopstick to clear jams every 90 seconds. This machine essentially hired me for a sweatshop job, and I was paying for the privilege. This was the most painful elimination because it actually worked. I bought a digital hot foil stamper for $680. It prints gold logos onto leather wallets and notebooks. The output was gorgeous. I listed a test batch of monogrammed journals and sold out in 2 days. I thought I had a winner. Then I tried to restock the foil. The machine used a proprietary roll width. I couldn't buy standard foil from local suppliers. I had to order from the original factory in Shenzhen. Shipping for the refills was $85. The lead time was 5 weeks. My Etsy store sat empty for a month waiting for materials. It failed the Home Depot rule. If you can't source consumables locally, you don't control your supply chain. You are just a hostage to a shipping container in the Pacific. I sold the unit on eBay for a $200 loss. 2 products left. And this is where I realized I'd been testing for the wrong thing. I realized I was analyzing these machines like a consumer. I was asking, does it make a pretty product? That is the wrong question. That mindset cost me $680 on the foil stamper. It made beautiful things, but it trapped me. I was judging the output but ignoring the input. The boba machine failed because the dough had to be perfect. The filament extruder failed because the plastic had to be pure. I was trying to replicate industrial precision in a garage. You will always lose that battle. A $200 plastic box cannot beat a $1 million factory at precision. So I flipped the script. I stopped looking for miniature factories. I started looking for value transmuters. The consumable trap is what kills microbusinesses. If your machine needs proprietary supplies from China, you don't own a business. You are just a dropshipper with dirty hands. You are a hostage to shipping containers. The real arbitrage isn't buying a cheap machine. It is buying a machine that eats cheap, local ingredients. I needed gear that turned generic $5 materials from Walmart into $50 artisanal goods on Etsy. This changed everything. It meant reliability mattered more than complexity. It meant the machine had to tolerate imperfect inputs. I wasn't looking for a tool anymore. I was looking for an infinite money glitch that ran on trash. The last two machines didn't just pass the Home Depot rule, they exploited it. They allowed me to exit the global supply chain entirely, and that is where the profit margins actually live. Which brings us to number 2, and the one machine that actually made money. Number 2 is a pneumatic bath bomb press for $460. This machine is terrifyingly efficient. By hand, I can pack maybe 15 bombs an hour before my wrists give out. This unit punches out 300. It dropped my labor cost from $2 per unit down to 4 cents. That is a 98% reduction in overhead. It passed the home outlet test, running off a standard air compressor. So why isn't it number 1? Because it demands volume. To keep it running for just 1 hour, I had to buy 50 pounds of citric acid and baking soda. That cost me $220 up front. If you cannot sell 2,000 units a week, this machine doesn't make you a business owner. It makes you a warehouse manager sitting on expiring chemicals. It is a winning machine for a scaling business, but a dangerous trap for a startup. That leaves the winner, the only machine that literally prints money from garbage. The manual paper pulp molder for $245. It looks like a science fair project gone wrong. It creates custom biodegradable packaging inserts. Here's the magic. The input material is free. I shredded my Amazon junk mail and old cardboard boxes. I blended it with tap water in a 5-gallon bucket. The material cost is $0. I pressed the slurry, let it dry overnight, and produced rigid, eco-friendly packaging. I sold bundles of 50 upcycled soap savers to other Etsy sellers for $35. My only cost was electricity for the blender. The profit margin is technically infinite. It fails the babysitter test because it is manual. You have to pull the lever yourself. It is slow and unglamorous, but it carries 0 financial risk. If you don't sell, you just have a bucket of wet paper. You aren't competing on precision, you are selling the rustic aesthetic that consumers are desperate to pay for. If you have a distribution channel ready to go, buy the bath bomb press. It is the only unit capable of supporting a 6-figure business. But remember, the chemical costs will eat your cash flow instantly. If you're bootstrapping with 0 risk tolerance, buy the paper pulp molder. It requires sweat equity, not capital. You won't get rich quick, but you will build a supply chain you actually control. I made the mistake of buying capacity before demand. I ended up with 4,000 unsold units rotting in a humid garage because I loved the machine more than the marketing. Automation amplifies your problems. If you can't sell 10 units made by hand, a machine just ensures you have 1,000 units you can't sell. Expensive gear won't save a bad business model, but the right gear stops being the reason you